Okay, for some reason it's not letting me. Welcome to today's webinar, Advanced Mail Tracking and ACS, presented by SnailWorks. Today, Dave Lewis, president of SnailWorks, will lead us through a deep dive into two essential areas of intelligent mail, mail tracking and address change service, ACS. We'll look at some of the reports for some real mailings and dig down into how to use data to make your mail better. Our program today is an hour long, and we promise to leave time at the end of the hour for questions. Your questions can be submitted through the webinar using the chat box in the lower right portion of your screen. Without further delay, Dave, get us started.
Well, thank you very much, Karen, and good afternoon. Let's see, okay, so make sure we're going through. I always have a struggle every time we do these to figure out how to go to webinar, but I think we are rocking and rolling now. Again, my name is Dave Lewis. I'm the president of SnailWorks, and we're going to be talking today about two of my favorite topics: advanced mail tracking and ACS, or address change service. And kind of a quick what I'm going to tell you preview. We're going to go over a little bit of basics on intelligent mail. I like to get everybody on the on an even playing field. Then we'll go through job creation a little bit, and then look at interpreting some results, find out which state has problems with their results. So the suspense is killing me. Which state has the worst mail tracking? And then finally, we'll be talking about address change service, ACS, and everyone's favorite topics, MIDs and CRIDs, mailer IDs, and all that stuff. And I swear we'll try to keep it so you don't have to have a propeller hat on to keep up with it, but we'll get into the weeds a little bit. So that said, as usual, we'll dispense with the commercial right away, which is SnailWorks is a multi-channel marketing company, and our goal is we are built around direct mail, and so our goal is to make direct mail more effective by linking it to online tools such as email, web advertising. Lately we've been doing remarketing and things like that as well. So essentially we're coordinating your direct mail with online channels, trying to boost the response rates for your marketing or fundraising. The services we offer, the first is mail tracking, and we'll be talking about mail tracking a lot today, so I won't elaborate on that. We'll kind of show you how that works on the system in some depth. And then our other our core product is multi-channel marketing and all the pieces that go with that, which is pearls and curls, as we call them, QR codes, landing pages, email marketing, whether it's blast or triggered emails. And if you were on earlier webinars, you know what those things are. If not, give us a call. We'll be happy to talk to you about them. And then finally, the thing that really makes it multi-channel marketing in our view is campaign coordination, tying all those things together. So that's it. That's sort of the commercial. And after that, we'll go into my favorite barcode, the intelligent mail barcode. So a little background. Actually, the original section I had here was the history of the barcodes, but Karen wouldn't let me do the entire history of barcodes, so we skipped all the earlier ones and went right to intelligent mail barcode. The difference between intelligent mail barcode and some of the earlier barcode symbologies that we used is it used to be short bars and long bars were all you could tell. I used to be able to impress people at cocktail parties by reading the barcodes on their mail. I got invited to surprisingly few cocktail parties, but the intelligent mail barcode uses a different methodology. It uses an encoder. So this is an intelligent mail barcode, and or a typical one, lots of numbers, typically 31 digits, and we're actually going to go into what all these digits mean a little bit. Don't worry, don't be terrified, and we'll just kind of give you a cursory view of what they all stand for. The encoder turns those 31 digits into 65 letters. I call them the fat D's after my rapping name in college. Which is A, T, D's, and F's, and each one of those represents a bar, and that's how you get the intelligent mail barcode. So normally humans cannot look at an intelligent mail barcode and decode it. It pretty much has to be decoded by a computer or a scanner. The pieces of the IMB, and this is relevant to know, is what components are in, and this is in those 31 digits. The first two digits are called the barcode ID, and most cases in letter size mail it's 00. There are some cases with flat size mail where it may be something else. That's usually driven by your pre-sort software that will determine that. The service type ID, these are my favorite digits in the barcode, and these are really what gives the intelligent mail barcode intelligence. The service type ID tells the barcode effectively what to do, whether it's just to sort the mail, whether it's to do mail tracking, whether there's ACS. It talks about the class of mail, talks about all kinds of things. So the service type ID is a 3-digit number that drives it. And really the thing you need to do here is, there's certain service type IDs that you need to be familiar with. The ones I have tattooed on my forearm, on my right arm I've got 241 and my left arm is 243, and I urge you all to get the same tattoos, but we'll talk about that as we go through and what those service type IDs mean and why you need to care. Mailer ID is my least favorite part of it because it's the most confusing part of the IMB. If you're cool, you've got a 6-digit mailer ID, and beyond being cool, it means you process and handle at least 10 million pieces of mail a year. If you do less than that, then you...
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, I'm not sure if we're just starting again or not. So we seem to be having some trouble with GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar. So I'm going to go ahead and start again with the pieces of the IMB just to be safe. And these are the components that make up the 31 digits of the IMB. And so if I said this already, I apologize. And then these are the components of the Intelligent Mail barcode. But the first 2 digits are the barcode ID, typically a 00 for letter size mail, maybe something else for flats that would be driven by your pre-sort software. The next 3 digits are the service type ID that essentially tell the barcode what to do, whether it's just to route the mail or track it or send ACS information, also the size and class of mail, and we'll be going through that as we get into it and what those mean and why they're relevant. The mailer ID identifies either the mail service provider, it could advertise or indicate the mail tracking provider, it could indicate the mail owner. There's a lot of different people, so the mailer ID can be a little bit confusing. It can be either 6 digits or 9 digits. If you do 10 million pieces or a year or more, then you'll have a 6-digit mailer ID. If you do less than that, typically you'll have a 9-digit. And we'll kind of go into why that matters. You want to have a 6-digit if you can. And again, with our clients, if you need help with that, we can usually help negotiate with the post office for that. And based on how long your mailer ID is, sort of determines how long the serial number, and that's the unique number you can put on every piece of mail. And that's either 6 digits or 9 digits based on how many digits you used up on the mailer ID. We prefer that. That's why we like a 6-digit mailer ID. Then we have 9 digits there, which is 1 billion pieces or 1 billion possible combinations. And so far, none of our clients are doing more than 1 billion pieces of mail in a year. But if you do more than 1 billion pieces, by all means, give us a call immediately after this, and we'll be happy to talk to you. And then finally, the delivery point, the zip plus 4, and then the delivery point of the zip code. Those last 11 digits, the zip plus 6, if you will, make up the rest of the IMB. And so what can an IMB do? The key functions is it gets you a postal discount. That's probably the first thing. In order to get an automation discount these days, and this has been true for a couple of years now, you have to have an Intelligent Mail barcode. They no longer accept PostNet barcodes. It routes your mail and gets it delivered faster. Barcoded mail does get delivered faster than unbarcoded mail. It just removes some steps from the Postal Service, so it does get your mail delivered faster. Again, if you're doing commercial mail, you almost certainly have an IMB on it. The IMB will identify the class of mail. From the Postal Service's perspective, that matters to them as far as controlling their volumes. You can get your mail tracked with an IMB. That's near and dear to our heart. With the data that comes back in and with your unique number on there from the serial number, we can tell when pieces of mail are being delivered by interpreting the data. And we're going to be showing you that and going into some depth on that. You can get address change information, and this is another area we're going to be talking about. These services are a little complicated, but worth knowing about and worth having a provider that can make them not complicated for you. That's our role. The IMB, in most cases, uniquely identifies each piece of mail. We know from the IMB who mailed it, who owns the mail, and to whom it is going, if I can use the proper grammar there. And that's that's good and bad, I guess, because by identifying each piece of mail, the Postal Service refers to it as each piece of mail having a license plate. So that's kind of cool. The downside is once you got a license plate, you can get a ticket. So the IMB is used to measure the quality of the mail. And quality in the terms of the Postal Service, really a better word than quality is compliance. make sure that you're following all the appropriate postal IMB rules. So that's once you've got that unique ID. If your quality is not there, the Postal Service can ding you. Essentially, it can give you a ticket. Never a speeding ticket. You'll never go too fast, I don't think. So that said, let's go ahead and stop all this PowerPoint stuff and go online. And so I'm going to attempt to go online. Bear with me for 1 second while I change screens here. And there we go. And this is, give me 1 second, it's a little slow. There it is, the SnailWorks website, where and again, in an earlier webinar we showed you all the cool features we have on here, and in addition to these fabulous stories, you can also, we have a tool here for just finding out how long mail typically gets to get delivered. We don't charge nothing for that, so if you want to go on and find out, sort of make an educated guess on how long your mail is going to take, by all means do that. You know, that doesn't require an account. What we're going to do now does require an account. I'm going to go ahead and hit the login button up here in the corner, and we are going to go into SnailWorks. Usually your login will probably be an email address. Because I'm a big shot around here, I get to have a funny-looking user ID, and that haunts me later. But let's so we're going to go ahead and get logged in here, and we'll go to this shows campaigns, mail tracking, all kinds of stuff here. But we're going to go right to mail tracking because that's our topic today. And the first thing I want to show in mail tracking, we'll use this test account, is we're going to go ahead and create a job for you. And this just takes a few minutes, but I think it's helpful to get a sense of when we're creating a mail tracking job in our system, what information we're looking at, what information we're gathering, and how it helps control what your barcode is going to be. There's really, in the SnailWorks system, there are two ways to create a job. One is with the interface I'm going to show you. We also have a system called One Step, because some of our clients, they already create their own intelligent mail barcodes. They just want someone to track them. They don't need someone to help them assign the numbers. And in that case, then we have some tools we can install locally on your site to help you do that. But we're going to show, I think this is helpful to show this sort of manual creation process. As you look at this create a job screen, we have outbound tracking, and that's all we're looking at today. We do have inbound tracking, which I mentioned in an earlier webinar, which tracks your reply mail. A really cool, cool tool. But we're not talking about that today. We might have another webinar just about inbound tracking, but today we're looking at outbound. Round trip is just a combination of the two. So we're doing outbound tracking. That means we're tracking a mailing that we're sending out. A job name, most clients here put a job number, really. We say job name here, so I'll just call it boring number for the job. You can really use anything you want there. You can use your most mailing services use their job number there, and then a job description is we'll call it the webinar example mailing. Very interesting name. And then we get into some of the sort of technical aspects of it. Now in this case, if you're using this interface, generally you're going to be using the SnailWorks mailer ID 200572. So you don't have to do anything there. In some cases, some clients have multiple mailer IDs that they use, and they can click this down box and get this menu and get other things to use. But we're just going to go ahead and use the SnailWorks MID. You choose a class of mail. You are all classy people, so we'll pick first class mail. Piece to type, just letter, card, or flat. We're going to call it a letter. And again, I do want to point out SnailWorks does not do parcel tracking. It's letters, flats, and cards, which are really kind of technically letters. Now, these are some of the great philosophical questions of mailing right now. Is this full service or not? And again, this is intelligent mail full service we're talking about. And most of what we're seeing these days is full service, so we'll go ahead and say yes on that. Now you'll notice if you're observant as I'm clicking on these things, the service type ID is constantly changing to reflect whatever I've selected. So by picking first class, letters, and full service, it's driven me to this 270 service type ID. But we're not done yet. The next question we have to ask is, do we want to do ACS or not? And we'll be talking about the details of ACS, but I'm going to say an enthusiastic yes in this case. And then when I say that, I've got my service type ID, I've got a choice of them, an incredibly confusing choice of service type IDs. This is where you roll up your sleeve and look at that tattoo I told you about. And on first class mail, you go with service type full service IMB, full service ACS, CSR. I'm going to explain what all those mean a little bit later in the presentation, but we're just going to pick that, and trust me, that's the right one you want. Then for a contact email, normally, again, your login is your email address, but because I have this special little account, I don't. So we'll put a contact email in there. So that's the basic information we need. And then we think in terms of splits. Most direct mailers we know do different versions or different splits on mailing. So we're going to add an outbound split. This is probably the most confusing part of this process. And I do want to point out, by the way, if you're a SnailWorks client or a new SnailWorks client in particular, and you're creating the job, the first time, because it's always easy to, I just bop through this stuff real fast to make it look easy. But if you're like me, when you actually sit down in front of your computer, you'll get a blank look on your face. So that's where our customer service people help create these jobs initially. But so we're going to create the first split. Split name is, we'll cleverly call it 123-A. And then we'll call this is our high dollar. We're doing a fundraiser here for you. So that's our high dollar split. It is first class letters, like we said before. The barcode ID has been chosen for us. We already picked all this stuff. We do have to say how many we're mailing here, although we'll have opportunities to change that later. I'm going to mail 100. This is a little split, 123 pieces because the keys are next to each other. Then we pick a mail date. I'm going to drop it tomorrow, Friday the 13th. We have some optional fields that I hope you don't make optional. One is the return zip code and the +4 if you have it. This can be helpful in identifying mail that's been rerouted that's being returned to you. A lot of times we can build reports if we know what that return zip +4 is. The targeted delivery date is when you are looking for this to be in home. We're mailing on the 13th. It's first class, so I want it to be delivered, the 16th and to the 17th is the range I would expect there. Campaign and effort, we don't need to put anything there. That has to do with multi-channel campaigns, which is for another day indeed. So we're going to save that. And so I've created a split. And because, just to show this, I'm going to add another outbound split. Very similar. This is 1, 2, 3. B, we'll call this one. This is low dollar. And you know what? My low dollar split, I don't want to spend the luxurious money of creating first class mail. So I'm going to go standard mail with that one. And you can see went to a default MID. And let me see, it's letters. So service type ID, I have to choose again. I'm going with 243, which I have tattooed on my other arm. This mailing quantity is 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a little bit bigger than the last one. This is my low dollar split. And then the mail drop date is going to go the same day, Friday the 13th. Same return address, zip. And then the targeted in-home, this is standard mail, so I don't expect it to be delivered that fast. So I'll give them a week. They'll start delivering it on the 20th, I hope, and they'll finish delivering it on the 25th. The reason you put these in is later when you're looking at reports, you'll be able to tell how your mail performs against what your expectations are. So that is done. And then we're going to save it. And really just that easy. So this job has been created. Now I'm going to go ahead and finish this off. And there's the webinar example mailing, all the information I put in here. Remember we had 2 splits, so I clicked the little plus sign. By a clue, whenever you see a plus sign on SnailWorks, click on it because you'll always find something fun. In this case, we get to see the 2 splits. So there's my high dollar and low dollar. No results yet. Now, one other thing that we're going to have to do in order to create this is we're going to have to upload the data to that. And there's a few ways to do that. You know, it's as far, again, I don't really want to get into that kind of detail today as far as the precise upload process, but we have some tools built in to make that very easy to do. Again, if you're working with locally, then it's sort of built into your home computer how to do that. So so that said, we've created a job, and you can kind of see how all those different service type IDs go. Now, typically what we're going to do is you're going to send us a file of who you're mailing to, and we're going to return that file with intelligent mail barcodes attached that you'll use. And as the mail gets delivered, we'll track it. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go back to my presentation here, if I can make that work. And There we go. So we're done snailing for the time being. So here is the other approach, which is what we call it one-step seamless tracking. And there was great debate here whether to use the term seamless because everyone's terrified of seamless acceptance, but it really is seamless. This builds right in. If you're running BCC or Satori or really any of the software pre-sort software packages out there, they all effortlessly merge into this, and you can send your file right up here. So you can easily tie this tracking in. So if you're doing a lot of, particularly clients that are doing multiple jobs a day, and we have a number of clients that do, then this is far and away the easiest way to do it. You don't want to have to go in and manually create all those jobs. So let's talk about interpreting the tracking data. We're going to go back and look at some typical results. But one of the challenges, this is something that we deal with day to day, and a lot of our clients, I think this is helpful for them to understand how we look at this, which is handling the truth. When you track mail, it reveals stuff about mail that your clients may not know. And we say tracking data is always illuminating, but it may be distressing sometimes if someone is not used to looking at their tracking data. So some of the things we're talking about when I mention that is 100% of your mail will not be tracked. I can pretty much guarantee that you will not get 100% tracking. There's a few reasons. Some mail bypasses automation. It just, it may go through may go through a manual sortation process. The machine may not be uploading data. There's all kinds of reasons. Some mail goes to Vermont. And Vermont's just a problem. I don't mean to pick on Vermont, but they got lousy mail tracking up there. And I'll show you. I've got some examples of the trouble we have. So if you have a mailing going to Vermont, expect low scan results. Sorry to pick on Vermont there. Pieces may be stuck together. People should stick together, but mail shouldn't. But sometimes mail does stick together, and so that you might get things pulled together. Things happen. Sometimes they're just mysterious why we don't get 100% of mail tracking. But here's what our expectation is. For letter size mail, if we get 90% or better, we're pretty happy with that. We think that is an acceptable scan rate. 95% is more okay. If we have a number 10 letter with a laser printed address on it that's not going to Vermont, then we would expect 98, 99% scan rates. But generally speaking, the further you move away from a number 10 envelope with a laser barcode, the lower the scan rates get. Now, and I say that if you're looking at a 6x11 card that's been inkjetted, yeah, we'll get usually 80 to 90% on that. So it's not like it's meaningless, but the scan rates do get a little bit lower when you move into funny sizes, even though you're still technically letters. And it just has to do with what they actually run through machinery at the Postal Service. Flats are entirely a different game. We track a lot of flats. We think it's worth doing, but scan rates are very different on flats depending on what kind of pre-sort you have and where it's going again. But usually on flats we'll see somewhere between 50 and 70% scan rates, and more importantly the timing is less precise on those. With letter size mail, we know that we see at the last scan the day the mail is being delivered. With flats, it's not quite so sure. Wanted to quickly run through the investigative process. When someone calls us and says, hey, how come I'm not getting scans? Where's my mail? Is it being delivered? What's going on? Usually they're saying in very excited terms. We're all excited when they call too. So we want to look into the process. This is what we will do if someone calls us and concerned about their mail delivery and their scan rate. The first thing we do is we say, we all take a breath. Is it really time for scans? It is not unusual for someone to call us the evening they have sent a mail again and saying, where's my scans? I don't see any. We won't see any that quickly in most cases. Generally, we see scans when the mail comes out of trays. So think of that. If all your mail is going to different facilities, we won't see scans until it starts to come out of the trays. So that's the first thing we look at. The next thing we want to do is we want to look at the barcode in the mail piece. We hate to say it, but if 8 times out of 10, maybe 9 times out of 10, there'll be something with the barcode that doesn't have the right service type ID, doesn't have the right serial number, or something like that. So we always look at that and look at the mail piece, see where it's positioned on there. And so again, if you're looking at this, these are sort of the steps we think you might want to take first. And by the way, as far as looking at barcodes, I said you can't read them at cocktail parties, but you can get apps for your smartphones to read intelligent mail barcodes, and it can be pretty handy. So you can sort of scan them on the floor and check quality. We check first scans to confirm it's in the mail. We were just doing this today. We had a client who called and said their client was looking at something and said that they only had 50% of it scanned. What happened? Did they really mail it? And we have a tool for looking at first scans. We're going to hop on and I'll show you that. So you can check the first scans and see if and make sure it's really the Postal Service is getting some scans or some kind of activity. Check geographic distribution. Make sure, see where the mail is going, and look at if you have a low scan rate, is it low everywhere, or are there certain areas where, you know, it's 100% most places, but 0% in, I don't know, Vermont, where you have a scan problem, or it could be anywhere. But we do look at geographic distribution. Got an interesting case I'm going to show you when we go back online. We drill down on delivered pieces to see if there's any irregularities in how it was handled. One thing we find a lot of times when we're getting bad scan rates or low scan rates is if we drill down, we'll see that the mail, even though it was a letter, was handled as a flat. And if it's handled as a flat, that does mess with your scan rates. They're going to be lower. So that's so we drill down look for irregularities. And then finally, we do check SnailWorks operations to make sure we're posting everything correctly, that we're getting our data from the post office. So we sort of check everything else before we take a look at it to make sure, because we know if our operations are working usually every day. So we make sure that we're posting things correctly. So that's kind of the investigation process we go through to find out why there's slow scans. If all else fails, we'll call the Postal Service. If we can't find anything, any irregularities, then we'll talk to the post. We have good contacts at the Postal Service. They can sort of help us review this. So that's our investigation process. That's handling the truth. That's how to work with your customers also on that. I want to talk a little about triggering, another application for tracking data, because a lot of what we do is trigger subsequent marketing efforts. And this is becoming really a bigger and bigger deal, particularly with email, but not just email, but with other online channels and telemarketing. So when do you trigger your next effort? How do we interpret the data for that? Again, you're not going to get 100% tracking, so you need to build some business rules to account for that fact. In other words, just because a piece of mail doesn't get scanned doesn't mean you shouldn't do subsequent marketing. It doesn't mean it's not getting delivered. In fact, in most cases, it does. So our business rule that we've built, we sort of have a default rule that we use, which is if 75% of the mail has been delivered in a geographic area, whether that's a zip code, 3-digit SCF, or state, we'll qualify that as delivered. We're going to assume if 75% of the mail was delivered in a zip code, at that point, probably all of it was delivered in that zip code, and so we'll send any associated emails or follow-up marketing with that at that point. And then once 90% overall is delivered, then we trigger it all. That's sort of our default. We can adjust these numbers. That's usually how we work. Once we have 90% of the mail scanned anywhere, we say, okay, it's all been delivered. Release all the emails that associate with that. And then you do also need to set a business rule for how long after the delivery you want to trigger your subsequent marketing. We think in terms particularly of email. If it's B2B, the information we're giving you is when it was delivered to the business. That doesn't mean it's in somebody's hands yet. So B2B, we usually build in a pad of 2 to 3 days after it's delivered before we send out an email or some other kind of marketing. B2C, it's more typically either that day, the day of delivery, the evening of delivery, or the next day. So think of those things in terms of timing. And this is really, everything about mail tracking is all about timing. The other thing we encourage, everything we're talking about now when you're looking at tracking results, trying to figure out what's gone wrong, and that's when that's all too often when people pay attention to mail tracking is when something's gone wrong. I'm not getting the response I expected. No one's coming into my store. Did the mail get mailed? We really encourage people to try to take a more proactive role, and we've built some nice tools that help that help you be proactive with the data that you get. Trigger files we already discussed. I kind of have that on here, but really I'm thinking in terms of your mail, which we're going to talk about a little bit today, and then scheduled reports. And this is a new feature we really have just rolled out on SnailWorks that we're having a lot of fun with here, and a lot of our clients are having a lot of fun with it too. It's kind of cool stuff. So your mail is a triggered report. And it's this nice graphical looking thing that you can send. Usually this is something that a mailer will send to their customers. In this case, this was a Speedy Lube. It's a lube center that has a lot of stores. They'll do mailings for a lot of stores, but then at one time it's one big mailing, but each store has certain pieces that attribute to that. So they send this email out as the mail starts to deliver there. In fact, there I think at 10%, when 10% of the mail delivers, they send this out saying your mail is getting delivered. A, it allows the store to prepare for the business that associates with that, and B, it allows you to it just kind of keeps the headquarters in mind of the individual branches. So I'll show you how to set this up when we go back online. In fact, let's go on back to the interwebs, as I like to call it here. And bear with me 1 second. And there we go. Okay, I didn't mean to sing while we were waiting there. Let's see. So this is we're back to the Networks website. I'm going to go ahead and log in again, nice and fresh for you. Type in my secret code. I'd tell you what it is, but I can't because it's secret. And so a couple things. We're back into these same reports. I'm going to go into SnailWorks this time, and these are some of the jobs we have posted on there. This is kind of a hodgepodge of stuff we've done, mostly for ourselves, some for others. And by the way, you can kind of see our typical scan rates. I told you, we're usually 94, 95%. These are mostly self-mailers. With that said, we're going to go ahead and look at this first job, which is actually a job we did for one of our clients. The names have been changed to protect the innocent. But this is a this was interesting. It's a little mailing. They mailed just to the state of Connecticut. I'll show you. I'll show you the view by U.S. map because it's kind of a funny view, which is it's pretty much all concentrated here. I won't pick on Vermont yet because they didn't mail anything to Vermont in this case. But so it was all to Connecticut, and if we go back to the view by date, you can see they had a problem here. It's harder to tell looking after the fact, but this is kind of where the detail gets broken down here, which is they mailed it on, I think it was on the 20th of January. It was a standard class mail. On the 23rd, they had 18% delivered. Okay, that's 3 days out, not so bad. But that's it. They got one more piece delivered the next day, then they didn't get anything else delivered. And so at this point, we're sitting almost a week out. We were at 18%. So panic buttons were pushed, and we like to push panic buttons here. So we decided to go ahead and drill down and try to figure out what was going on. So if we look at the view by state, well, it's almost all Connecticut, so I'll go into Connecticut. And very quickly it becomes apparent, and remember this was early on, that the mail had been delivered in 066, 068, and 069, which is all served by one facility. And that was it. That was our 18%. This stuff did not deliver until a week later. So now once a week later came, we kind of figured out what was going on, and it was okay. But in the meantime, we had to go look at this. We looked at first scans also. We could look at first scan reports, and that showed when the first scans occurred. So that little batch occurred right here on the 22nd. Nothing else got first scans. In other words, the post office did not process it at all until the 29th. So there was a delay there. So the next thing was I'm going to go back to delivery date scans. And see, this stuff's just so easy to work. It's very, very intuitive. One of the rules, in fact, that we have here is anything we design has to be so easy that I can work it. And that is a low bar, trust me on that. So if I can work this stuff, you can. And all I do, and one of the things I do is I just keep drilling down. So let me go back to what I just did there. So this was the 3 digits in the state of Connecticut. I just picked one at random, 061, and clicked on that. And that just takes me right to this view of the 5-digit zips in Connecticut. And then I just pick one within the 061 area. Then I just pick one of those. And then this shows me the 2 pieces that were there, and one of them was delivered on the 30th. So if I look at that, I'm looking to see if there's anything unusual. Was it handled as a flat? Was there anything like that going on? Nope, this was very standard delivery. So the mail got hung up somewhere between when it was dropped and when it arrived at Hartford in the Connecticut Valley District. And actually, this client did go to the Postal Service and try to find out. They're seeing that same pattern. For some reason, but they're still working with the Postal Service now. They have that concrete information they can deal with. Now, interesting, this piece that was delivered yet another week later we looked at this, and this was a little different. This went into northern New Jersey on the 30th, where it was processed and then put on apparently a burro to Hartford, Connecticut, where it was finally sequenced and delivered. And you can see the last sequence occurred at 9:45 at night on the 8th, so we call that it was delivered on the 9th. And I'd be willing to bet my hat that it got delivered that day. So anyway, that's sort of how that's one way we looked at a problem to interpret that and find that detail. Now, one of the things this client is concerned about is so they've had subsequent mailings with the same problems. They really want to pay attention to what's going on with their mailings. So rather than have to go in all the time and look at this, we can set up a scheduled report for them. And so to do a scheduled report, and again, this is a new feature we just added. We'll click on this little, there's other ways to do this. So we have two ways to do everything on SnailWorks. But we're going to do, we're going to click, whoop, that didn't work. Let me try that again. We'll click on the Scheduled Reports button. And we'll click on it again. And that'll take me to this report page. And so we wanted the scans by date. And we wanted it for SnailWorks for that job. And again, when we do a job, when we set it up, we usually will do this early on in the job, not after it's done in this case. And then we can choose to run a report immediately. Let me see that report now. Or we can have it run daily. So every day we will email a report to that address. And so let's say we'll send it to me. It can come from anybody. So if you're a reseller of the services and you don't want people to know it's SnailWorks per se, then you can go ahead and put in, I'll put in my AOL address on here. So it can come from me. It can come from a client's email address, and that will show as the from address. Now that is a spoofed address, as we say. So if they right-click on it, they'll be able to see it was from SnailWorks. So it's not super secret, but it keeps it. They'll know it's from you, so they know what it's about. And then in terms of the format that we can send, we can embed that in an HTML email. And I'm going to show you, actually, I sent one of these to myself earlier. When we go back in the presentation, I can show you how that works. But you can be in an email. We can send it as a PDF attachment to the email. Lots of different options on that. So this is I'll send it, we'll go ahead and click on save because it doesn't cost nothing to do it. So we went ahead and sent the report. And so every day now I'll get a report on that job. Now again, this is a job that's already done. This is something we generally do on a new job that we just did. So we can keep an eye on it to make sure it's getting delivered and understand if there's a problem. Another new feature that we added in this reporting also is to go back to this. Let's say, now, if you show this to someone at the Postal Service, particularly in this district in Connecticut, they're going to find this interesting. I hope they're going to want to deal with that. And so we also added the option to export it, that you can select a PDF, and again, it won't show because of GoToMeeting. I can't get it to show up here, but if you click on that, it'll save a PDF, and then you can take that and send it to the Postal Service, whatever it may be, or to whomever you need to, or to your client. So a lot of people use that as well. So a nice new feature, which is most of the reports we have. You kind of have to, if you browse around, you see which reports are enabled and which aren't. But you're able to download this as a PDF in a nice printable form, so you can send it to someone to share with them. So again, all this, we're trying to be more proactive with the data rather than just wait for things to go wrong and go into a panic. Although I love panicking personally. So go back into SnailWorks here for a minute to show a couple other quick things. This is a job we sent out for how to sell ebooks. And the main thing I really want to show on this is if you look at the view by, because this is a source of contention here, if we look at the view by the U.S. map, you'll notice that the state of Vermont is once again light color. So I don't know what's going on in Vermont. We had 62% tracking. So these other states will come and go, but Vermont's always a different color. So I don't know if we have anyone from Vermont on the line today. Probably best if we don't, because it's a lovely state. But so I'm not sure what the delivery issues are there. So that's I think we've kind of highlighted some of the features we have on there. Oh, one other thing I did want to show was I talked about your mail, And let's see if I can figure out how. I want to show you how we set up your mail. And we're going to go ahead and edit account settings in here. And you see there's a tab for your mail. If I click on that, oh, it's already been filled in. So this is something you do need to set up with us early on. It's a little complicated. But again, working with our CSRs, it's easy. In fact, here's one of our CSRs is listed here, Karen Bartram. But you give us a subject line, what the from address is, and then some formats. One of the neat things is you can set your own threshold. So we have some clients now who are starting to use this where they're setting the threshold at 50%. So we have some mailhouse clients that when they send a job out, whenever 50% of the mail's been delivered, it'll automatically trigger a your mail email to their customers saying, hey, 50% of your mail has been triggered. And we can also add a link to those emails so they can go see the detail of the reports. So a nice way to kind of stay in touch with your client after the mail's been dropped. Again, one of the sort of proactive uses we see for this. And that said, I'm going to go ahead and go back to the presentation so I can hopefully run through this enough time to leave some time for questions on here. I promised I'd talk loud and fast, so that's what we're doing. This is, again, I just thought this was interesting. I printed these out, some various random jobs just to show, once again, Vermont is always slow. It's a different color, always low scan rate. But I'm just picking on Vermont today. We were having some fun with that. And then this is that report that I sent to myself essentially. So it's the same report we're looking at, and it's not a live email, so I can't scroll around. But we just embedded that report in an email. So if you want to share this with someone, very easy to do now with those reports. So that said, let's go into our final topic today. But it's a big ugly one, which is ACS, MIDs, ROI, and U. So talk about ACS, which is Address Change Service. And Address Change Service is a service that essentially it's a post-mailing process. So after NCOA, mail that's still undeliverable will send a notice when it's been undelivered. It's really that simple. The letter carrier tries to deliver something, it doesn't get delivered, and ACS is all about sending you a notice that the mail was undeliverable and why that was, maybe where they've moved. ACS is not a new service. It's been around long enough that they have one version of it that's called traditional ACS. Mostly periodicals use this, and that's if you're a periodical mailer or not. You've seen those ugly key lines that come under the name and some addresses that start with a pound sign. I guess it's called a hashtag these days, but those are, that's not really an intelligent mail product. Full service ACS. This is where we start getting into the new technologies, where we're using marking in the barcode, using the intelligent mail barcode to request ACS. And so full service is more or less free. Be careful about the free thing. If you don't use the data, if you keep making the same mistake, eventually you will be charged for full service updates. It's still a lot cheaper than it used to be, but there could be costs. One code ACS really deals with basic IMB, and there are some modest charges for that. We'd say it's less free. It used to be, in traditional, it used to be 50 cents or more for each update. Much less expensive than that now. And then single source is really where the data goes. When you get ACS data, the data has to go somewhere. So it can be either put in the business customer gateway that you can dig into on the Postal Service, which is no fun at all. And trust me, if anyone has been on the business service or the customer gateway, then you know it's not a treat to go there. Or you can have the data sent to you, or better still, sent to SnailWorks, where we will sort it, manicure it, and manage it to you, sent to you in nice, manageable little packages. So that's your basic ACS, but then it gets more complex than that. There are different service levels, I guess you'd call them. We say sprinkles on there because, flavors is one thing, but then these are technically called ancillary service endorsements, but that's an ironic name because they're not endorsements you actually print on the mail piece. These are, I guess I would call them implied endorsements that are embedded in the way you set up your intelligent mail. This is another reason you really want to work with someone who is familiar with this stuff, because this is high risk stuff if you don't do it right. We make sure our customers do this right. ASR is the first one. This used to kind of be the granddaddy of this. Used to be address correction requested, then it's address service requested. if you choose this service, and these are all driven by different service type IDs you choose, by the way. If the piece is forwardable, it'll be forwarded. If it's returnable, they'll return it to you. If it's standard mail, you can get charged for the piece being returned. You can get charged a lot for mail being returned. So this is okay to use for first-class mail if you really want to get the mail pieces back. If you have some reason to get the mail pieces back, maybe there's checks in there or something you just want to have back in your hands. It's okay. Standard mail, unless you really want that mail back, you do not want to use ASR. Here is the one you want to use, CSR, Change Service Requested. In this case, if a piece of mail is undeliverable, first class or standard, the piece of mail will be destroyed. A change of address is sent electronically. And if it's full service letters, there's no charge at all, whether it's standard or first class. So again, unless you really need the mail back, this is the way to go. 99% of what we do on ACS is change service requested. We just have very few people who need that mail piece back. Return service requested, again, okay for first class, rarely for standard. The piece will be returned to you. It will not be forwarded. You'll get an electronic update. If it's standard mail, you will pay a lot of money for the return. And finally, forwarding service requested. And this is the mysterious one. For 1 to 12 months after the move is filed, it'll be forwarded for free. After 12 months, the mail piece will be returned. Free for first-class mail, $1 billion for standard mail. It may not technically be $1 billion, but it'll feel like it. It's called the weighted average, or something like the weighted fee. It's a lot. You do not want to get mail pieces returned. You have to really desperately want your mail back to do that. Standard mail, it's very important to be careful with that. And again, this is what we tell everybody, and this is what we have tattooed on our arms. Unless you have a compelling reason to do so, use change service requested. And just in case it wasn't confusing enough, just use option 2. Don't even ask us what option 1 is. This has to do with very esoteric bits about how long after the move is filed different actions are taken. If you use option 1, we'll forgive you and it won't put you out of business, but option 2 is preferred. If someone wants to have a philosophical discussion about option 1 versus option 2, I do that all day long. Feel free to give us a call. But so this is the default change service requested option 2, and that is again, don't write this down, you don't need to remember it, but those are service type IDs 241 and 243. And it really bothers me that I can remember that. So remember we said these are ancillary endorsements, but we do not want to actually print any of that on the mail piece. There are 2 endorsement options on the mail piece that we can recommend, and anything else you're on your own, we don't recommend, and even these, very careful. First class mail, the endorsement you should use is no endorsement. Don't put an endorsement on first-class mail. The reason is when first-class mail is undeliverable, the post office will send it to their forwarding section and figure out what to do with it from there. They won't just get rid of it. They will send it back and it'll be scanned again. So at that point, if your barcode says, hey, this is change service, they'll catch it right then and they will handle it appropriately. So if you put an endorsement on it, all you're doing is confusing them and risking getting some manual returns back that you didn't want, and paying for, and not getting sometimes your electronic returns, and in some cases being charged. Standard class mail, the endorsement you use is electronic service requested. That wasn't one of the options we looked at, was it? All this means is, hey, letter carrier, send this back to the forwarding section so we can see what the barcode says it wants. So electronic service requested is the endorsement for standard class mail. Do not put address service requested. Do not put any of those other things on there. Electronic service requested. The wrong endorsements will cost you catastrophic amounts of money. If you're mailing a big list with a poor quality that you're not sure about the quality of, and you're getting those undeliverable pieces returned when you don't want them, it can be very, very expensive. So be careful with endorsements. Again, if you're not sure, one of the things that we do for our clients is when they're doing ACS for the first time, we do have them send us images of the pieces if they want. I mean, if they're confident, but they don't have to. We encourage them to send us a PDF or a scan of the mail piece so we can make sure it has the appropriate endorsement on it. Be careful. This is dangerous territory. Then last but not least, I'm afraid we're going to go into choosing the right MID. And the mailer ID on the mail piece does not necessarily have to correspond to the mailer ID in the eDocs. And without going too far into what that sentence means, the options you have, the primary options you want to look at, if you're using SnailWorks to do mail tracking for you or to do ACS, you can use our mailer ID on your mail pieces. You'll still have a mail preparer and a mail owner MIDs or CRIDs in the eDocs, but you can use SnailWorks' MID. It's easy to do. It takes no coordination. If this is what new clients do this all the time. In most cases, the first couple jobs, we'll just go ahead and use our MID. The only downside, if you will, is that on ACS we do have a per piece charge that we'll charge for doing ACS on our MID. But we can do that, and that works. If you're doing a significant amount of volume or a lot of jobs, most of our mail service providers use their own MID on the mail pieces. They use their own software to assign intelligent mail barcodes. And then we help them coordinate that with the Postal Service, and it's not hard to do. We can do that in a day, so that the data their tracking and ACS data gets sent to us as well as them. We have the one-step seamless tracking that sets up with any of the pre-sort programs. Very easy to do. In this case, there's no per piece fees for SnailWorks for ACS. So this is, again, if you're doing volume, this is where the pros eventually move to, is using their own MID, and then having sharing the data with us. You can use the mail owner's MID. You don't need to do that. This is a source of great confusion. We sort of have a Zen-like clarity on it now that we've been working with these MIDs for now, until the Postal Service changes the rules again. But for right now, we think either use our MID or use the mail service provider's MID. You don't really need the owner's MID on the mail piece. You'll have to have their MID or their CRID. And if this is all gibberish to you, you're a lucky person. That means you don't have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. But so anyway, that's kind of our recommendations in that arena. Some quick ROI. We love ACS. It's been growing a lot. It's probably our fastest growing area right now at SnailWorks in terms of people using our services. Even if you're doing NCOA, we're usually finding that after an NCOA process on a good quality list, we're still getting typically a 1.5% hit rate on ACS. That means that, I have an example there, on 10,000 piece mailing, we'll typically get about 150 undeliverable pieces that we'll get information back on. That for subsequent mailings, you can either change the address or get that address out, or just delete the address. So even on a 10,000 piece mailing, you could save over $100. And of course, that's lifetime. You're going to save that every time you do more mailings there. And technically, it boosts response. You're mailing less dead mail, less undeliverable mail, so you get better response from that. It's easy and affordable. As I said, you can register your MID with us, and we'll get your hits for you. Or you can use our MID, and then you pay a per piece fee. But again, it's something, if you're not doing ACS, if you're a mail service provider, frankly, it's a good source for revenue. This is something that will have value to your clients. You can make a little bit of money on it. It's a win-win. It's a win-win-win. The Postal Service gets better mail, which is what they're striving for. And then it gives you something that you can offer to your clients that makes their list better, and gives you a revenue source as well. So that's it. I'm going to go just want to show real quickly how the ACS services can work. And I've probably timed out here, so I'll sign out real fast. And this just take a sec. I just want to kind of show you a couple of quick features about how ACS works on our system. And that's not what I want to do. Let me go back here to this ACS client. So again, this is a job we did for one of our clients. There's Vermont again. Just got to point that out. I'm sorry. So we'll go here. And again, this is easy as looking at any other report. So I'll go for ACS data raw. And so this is the ACS data we got back on this. You can see this is kind of matched my numbers. Excuse me. It was 24,000 piece mail. We got 331 hits. This file comes back, and you can tell from it what what got delivered, why, or what didn't get delivered, why it didn't get delivered. So a lot of these were temporarily away on this mailing. They may have a new address listed. It may just be moved, not forwardable, whatever that may be. But you can find out what those are. And this is all. You can just download it as an Excel file and process it from there. So it's just very simple to do. Most of our customers do it once for a job, say 3 to 4 weeks after the mailing. They go in one time and download all this stuff. One other nice thing that we have, let's see if I can get this to work for me here, which I only have one job. But if you have multiple jobs, you can select multiple jobs and have them all download at once. So you can say, and you can select all jobs for a particular client. Say, let me see all their ACS data for a particular, let me see if I pick ACS reports out of here. You get a date range, so you can say, give me all the ACS hits for this date range from all my mailings. So if you're doing this for someone who has a house file they're using, it's a real nice way to download that and get that sent to you automatically. So very simple tool to use, very powerful stuff with some of the move update requirements changing in the coming year, going from 30% tolerance to 0.8%. Things like that could be very handy. It's a nice tool. So let me go back to my other monitor. That's right, I got 2 monitors. So that's so anyway, advanced services. That's I'll get one-step seamless tracking. Here's just some of the marketing pieces we've had for that, and then your mail, which we think is just a very powerful tool for sharing tracking information, making it easy to do. So that said, we're going to go ahead and take some questions now. If you have any questions, and Karen's handing me a couple that were asked already, but if you do have any questions, go ahead. We've got, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes here that I'll run through some. Anything that I don't answer while we're here, I will try to get back to you in person and follow up. Our next webinar is, we don't know yet, but these have been very effective. We've had a lot of people come to these, and we've gotten a lot of good response. So if there's a topic that you'd like us to cover, by all means, let us know. And we expect sometime in April is the next webinar we'll do. It may be on inbound tracking. Who knows? So some of the questions we got, one question I got was, can you track foreign mail? Sadly, we do not have that capability. I will be a very, very rich man the day we are able to do that. But currently, this is all through the USPS Intelligent Mail tracing program, so we cannot do foreign mail. Will ACS help with move update requirements? The short answer is yes. With a move update, it does require, the way it's done now, it's not so, the important number is not so much what processes you've gone through. The important thing is what your address quality is, what percentage of undeliverable mail you have. So if you use ACS, it just helps drive down that percentage. NCOA alone may not be enough to spare you that, because it's going to have this 0.8% tolerance. So we think ACS will help meet move update requirements, not necessarily by itself. And this is something if you watch our newsletters, there's some technical issues surrounding what the Postal Service has sort of changed the rules on move update. And so we'll have one of our newsletters coming out. We will have some information on that very topic in a little bit more detail. What other services besides email could be triggered? Again, the things that we have triggered, besides email, probably the #1 thing we've triggered is telemarketing. We have some auto warranty firms that we do work for. They sell extended warranties on cars, and they want to make a telemarketing call 3 days after the piece of mail gets delivered. In fact, they used to mail everything first class. So that's the first one that comes to mind, is that can be triggered. We have had a couple of cases of triggering text messages in a very specific way, working with some people who have permission for texting. Texting is a sort of a tough topic, and we don't do that. We don't support the texting here specifically, but we have partners we can work with. So if you have someone who wants to do it, particularly someone, for example, who's doing auto service, where a lot of times they're supposed to contact someone and they do have permission to send them a text, that can work there. Do I need to open an account with the post office to do ACS? You do not. If you use our mailer ID, you do not need You do not need an account. You can ride off of our ACS account by using our MID. And then, is there any way to avoid the ACS endorsement for standard rate mail? And sadly, there is not, and that is one of the things. I know for some fundraisers, the idea of putting electronic service requested on their mail piece just makes their skin crawl. Not much I can do about that. We do encourage nonprofit people out there, because of the value of the data, to at least test mail with the endorsement versus mail without the endorsement. Let me see, what distinguishing features does your product have versus competitors? Boy, that seems like an unfair question. Well, they have me, and I'm charming, and that's got to be worth something. But no, beyond that, I think all of the competitive products have merits. We think ours is probably the easiest to use, the most intuitive interface. And that's really what this is about. And we also have some of the sharing tools that we showed you today, the ability to schedule and send reports. Your mail is a unique feature that we have, and the level of expertise we have is we think, pretty special. Let me see, would this interfere with a MLOCR machine? It depends on the arrangement that you have. If it's first class, if mail, usually the commingler is going to print the barcode on. So, but for standard mail, generally you're going to have to print the barcodes yourself. If you are a commingler, if you talk to us, we can talk about some of the strategies around that. But it gets kind of complicated. But usually it's not going to interfere with an MLOCR. But someone's got to print the barcode, one person or the other. So if the OCR is going to come through and print a separate barcode on, then it could be an issue. One question we have, this is a good one, is a PowerPoint available to participants? This presentation is going to be available to participants. And actually, I'm very glad you asked that, because I'm going to make one last leap back to the interwebs here, just to show off a little bit. I'm going to sign out from this. Go back to, if you go to snailworks.com, and I suggest you go there at least once every day. If you go to News and Events under Webinars, you will find links to our first two webinars from November and January, and then we will soon have a link to this one. In the next few days, we'll have a link up there so you can come listen to this one again. Well, we have already rolled a little bit past our time, and so. And we have a question about the endorsement on standard envelopes. Well, and I'll tell you what, we'll try to send that message out to somebody, because we've kind of gone over time. So I want to wrap up if I can. If you have any other questions, by all means, feel free to contact us. Here's our contact information. You can reach me, Karen Bartram, who's our Director of Client Services, Steve Hertz, who's the Director of Sales. You'll probably hear from him anyway if he's doing his job. But that's by all means, feel free to contact us with any questions. Send us money, whatever you'd like from there. And do stand by. We will have more webinars coming up in the near future. We think these have been very successful. We've gotten a lot of positive response from them. So that is Advanced Mail Tracking in ACS. Thanks again for joining us today, and have a good afternoon.